When we were at Gen Con this past year in August 2024, we got front row seats when Wizards of the Coast unveiled their new 3D VTT, which would be coming out for 5th edition, Project Sigil.
This ambitious project aimed to create an immersive online D&D experience, essentially creating a 3D virtual tabletop where DMs could sign in and spend hours creating their world and all the buildings and dungeons that their players might go into and then actually be able to play through the system. It was a very ambitious project, and we had a lot of hope hearing about it initially.
What we were seeing coming out from the Project Sigil team was a beautiful looking interface powered by the Unreal Engine, which would fully integrate with D&D Beyond and the rules of D&D 2024. We got the chance to speak to some of the people in leading that development project, and they seemed really, really hopeful and optimistic about what they were going to be able to achieve with the platform and the types of integrations that they would have. Wizards of the Coast showed off a couple examples of live plays that were using the VTT and using it as a platform to play D&D in. And honestly, for me and Kelly, we come from a D&D experience where we use a lot of 3D terrain and miniatures in our games. So the idea of a 3D VTT was pretty compelling to us, I think, because I'm someone that I spend hours and hours and hours putting together pieces of modular terrain with Dwarven Forge and 3D printed scenery, using miniatures from Hero Forge and WizKids and ones that I've hand painted myself. And I'm very much one of those like artificer style DMs that I like to have a beautiful and immersive environment in front of my players. So for me, the idea of spending hours and hours in a level builder making an experience for my players is not something that I'm unfamiliar with.
Well, for myself, I grew up as a kid who played with a ton of Lego, and I've always grown up with anytime you put something in front of me that lets me create, I get just as much joy out of spending countless hours creating. Look at Minecraft. I've spent like 400 hours building stuff in Minecraft.
I have like 2,000 hours in Satisfactory,
Yeah.
thousands of hours in Dwarf Fortress.
It's
like,
almost a different hobby, but there is if you're into that hobby, the idea of a 3D virtual tabletop presented something that was compelling to a different hobby of mine, that I could actually combine my two hobbies, spend hours creating an immersive 3D world, and then play D&D in it.
I've always thought like one of the coolest things about many like the single player builder games would be like, I wish I could use this for D&D. I wish I could bring people into this and experience this world, because would I lose countless hours building like castles in a virtual environment? Totally, but it would be worth it for a cool experience. And so I think for both Kelly and I, we looked at the potential of Project Sigil with a lot of excitement. That said, I remember the failed VTT that was promised with 4th edition.
Yeah.
And, we've been pretty used to using a bunch of the other great VTTs that are out there already. And it's a pretty competitive field. And so in the midst of all this, though I think we were cautiously optimistic. And then Sigil launched unceremoniously about a month ago to very little fanfare and announcement. And promptly thereafter, Hasbro laid off 90% of the team that was working on it. And now Sigil lies in state.
Sigil exists now, and people are talking about it, but not in the way that Wizards of the Coast had hoped. There's a lot of controversy around Sigil, with them having laid off most of the staff and it kind of feeling like it might be dead in the water. It's left many wondering, where's it sitting now?
The Project Sigil team now, from our understanding, is left with a skeleton crew, and our hearts go out to all those people who were laid off. It wasn't their fault. They were brought on to a project that seems to have been a sinking ship, and I really hope that all of those people find their feet wherever they land, because I don't necessarily think that any of those people laid off, it certainly was not their fault that this has occurred.
No, and I think that we saw mistakes starting to happen in even early conception, because there were a lot of concerns surrounding the business model that would be involved in Sigil, and that was particularly the prospect of exploitative cosmetic microtransactions, aggressive monetization, keeping users in a locked down platform, and artificial intelligence being used. These were deep concerns that a lot of the community had, And it didn't seem like Sigil was going to change their course from this feedback.
And so all of that contributed to, I think, a lot of negativity and trepidation around Project Sigil. And I think because of that, a lot fewer people ended up talking about it
In a
because
positive
in
way.
in a positive way, ourselves included.
Yeah.
And aside from those things, and what we'd like to do today, though, is instead of focusing on all the doom and gloom surrounding Project Sigil, and there's a lot of things to be critical about with Project Sigil. What Kelly and I want to talk about today is how we believe that Project Sigil could have been awesome. It could have been wildly successful, and it could have been something beloved by the community. The idea of a 3D immersive VTT has often been called in this discussion a fool's errand. And we fundamentally do not think that is true. We think that the prospect of a 3D VTT is awesome. We would love to see it. And today, we're going to talk about 5 things that Wizards could have done and maybe still could do that would have made Project Sigil an amazing success.
There's a lot to discuss, so let's get rolling.
This week's episode of our show is sponsored by Phoenix Fan Fusion, which is coming to the Phoenix Convention Center from June 6th to 8th this 2025.
Monty and I love going to conventions. We go to a lot. Conventions are one of the best places to meet people in your community, make new friends playing cool games, and also, if you're a big nerd like us, you can get a lot of cool stuff that you can't get. It's like walking into like a super mall of only stuff dedicated to your nerdy passions. Phoenix Fan Fusion is the place to go for all things geek, and it is the largest pop culture convention in the Southwest. And of course, this year's Fan Fusion is actually going to be featuring the 4 hobbits from Lord of the Rings, Simon Pegg, and many other amazing celebrities from all of our nerdy favorites. So you definitely want to check it out.
Whether you want to play some more Dungeons & Dragons, try out a new RPG, or try out a new board game, Phoenix Fan Fusion is going to be a great place to get your gaming fix. Best of all, Phoenix Fan Fusion is an independently run convention, and so it's a great place to explore the worlds that you love and get hands-on with games, art, and activities. Bring your entire gaming group, your family, your friends. Going to a con is such a wild time, and like Kelly, I love going to conventions. It's a huge part of my gaming experience myself, and there's so many events to check out at the con. So follow the links down below where you can find the full itinerary for Phoenix Fan Fusion. You can get your badge, you can get your hotels, and you can plan your trip to it because it sounds like it's going to be a real blast.
And kids under 12 are totally free for Fan Fusion, so bring your whole family, bring your kids. It's going to be awesome. Make sure to check the links below, and thank you to Phoenix Fan Fusion for sponsoring this video. And now, on to the episode.
Step 1. You're Wizard of the Coast. What is the first thing that you should do?
Well, I should probably hire or look to a team who already makes ambitious, amazing software and see if they could handle it for me.
Yeah, the first thing that Wizards should have done to make Project Sigil a success is not done it themselves. And if we look at the track record of the past several years, some of the most successful projects involving the Dungeons & Dragons brand were not things that came out of Wizards of the Coast. Certainly, Wizards has the wheelhouse on making the books, making the core D&D product, and I don't necessarily think that should change, but I would also say that third-party publishers are often doing even better things than Wizards on that front. But look at the examples.
If you look at projects like Baldur's Gate 3,
Larian Studios.
Larian Studios. D&D Beyond was actually a licensed project that was created by a different company and then
Curse
amalgamated into Honor Among Thieves. We wanted a D&D movie. We hired people capable of making a D&D movie. We got an excellent cast, and it was a lot of fun. Even the minis.
Yeah, all of the official Dungeons & Dragons miniatures are outsourced to WizKids, who does a fantastic job with those miniatures. We love the WizKids minis. It's been super successful and going strong for years and years and years. And I think that in a big way, like especially the shadow of Baldur's Gate 3 as a wildly successful game of the year video game using the D&D mechanics and brand built in the Unreal and like built with a beautiful graphics engine. I don't think it is Unreal. Is it Unreal? I don't actually know off the top
It's
of my head.
unreal.
It is unreal
Uh,
how good it is.
but
Um
but I think, like, even right there, like, Baldur's Gate 3 was so successful. Imagine a world where Larian Studios had just taken the blueprints of Baldur's Gate 3 and made a customizable DM mode
yeah.
that Wizards of the Coast then bought and was like, "Here you
Yep.
go. Build your own Baldur's Gate 3."
I don't want to spread rumors. I
Yeah.
don't. But it does seem weird that Larian didn't get to do that. And it does make one wonder if somewhere in the matrix of this that like Wizards like we don't want them to compete with our own.
Yeah, like, because there's been DM modes in previous games,
Yeah.
that have been wildly successful and
And
still have
more on
active.
that
Yeah.
later on, but I think that that would have been the first step. I think that Wizards of the Coast should have shopped out to a professional video game studio. They could have still acted as the publisher, but they ought to have found a really strong developer to come in and take the D&D license and build it. Would Wizards have had to have shared part of the profits with somebody else? Yes, but in the end,
They probably would have made more money.
they certainly probably would have.
So let's look at step number 2. You're wizards, and you're designing a new piece of software. Um, are you gonna make it accessible to
I
everybody?
mean, D&D Beyond is amazingly accessible. If you got a website or a phone, you can get on that. And surely because you have so many D&D Beyond accounts and you have cookies and browser extensions, you should be able to read your audience and find out how many of them are using different platforms and what kind of computers they're actually using so that you can make something that the vast majority of your audience can actually use.
Yes, preferably, but our step 2 is that it should have accessible system requirements. We were invited to try out Project Sigil by the D&D team countless times. Now, Monty is admittedly a PC guy. He's been trying to talk me into buying a PC for years, but I use a Mac. I have for most of my life. And every time that Project Sigil, every time the team reached out and said, "Hey, do you guys want to try it out?" I would ask, "Can I run it on my Mac?" And they would say, "No, sorry." And I'd go, "Then I can't try it out and tell you my feedback on
Yeah,
it."
half of our group, like half of our players that we play with regularly are all on
A
Macs.
large portion of my friends use Mac.
Yeah, and a bunch of the other people that were on PC still didn't have a beefed up gaming PC
The
to run it.
requirements are so high, so high. Like,
Yeah,
we even have a beefed up studio PC here that we use for
yeah.
all of our studio needs, and it barely runs Project Sigil.
It's weird to say that here's the thing. Like we did download and install the release version that is now available through the D&D Beyond website. We installed it on our Studio PC, which is an i9 processor with a 4090, and it crashed 3 times starting it up, and then took 4 minutes to load.
Black screen, we weren't sure what was happening. There was a loading thing for a bit, and then the loading thing went away, and we just stared at a black screen for several minutes, wondering if our computer was going to crash again. Once it launched, there are a lot of positive things to say here. It looked gorgeous. You could move the minis. Monty and I, again, as Lego Satisfactory Minecraft kids, immediately could see ourselves getting deeply
Oh
sucked
yeah, like
into.
I was like 5 seconds into placing walls down, and like my brain was already like releasing
I had
the
to remind
chemicals.
him that we had
Yeah,
to film today,
yeah.
um, and be like, "Monty, you're about to go deep
It's
into
like
that,
no,
like,
I need to.
please
I'm making
come back,
dungeons
come back."
now. It's too late.
But getting there was, even on our studio PC, was a process, and I just think that, a lot of people don't have souped up PCs. A lot of people are on Macs. There are so many options out there for VTTs that run on pretty simple systems that it felt wild to me that there was this demand for me to go out and buy like a $4,000 PC in order to
Yeah.
build my DM workshop world.
One of the biggest things that comes to mind was actually a sponsor of the channel, a game called Demio. had sponsored one of our videos. They make a dungeon crawler dice roller game. Obviously, it doesn't have the same level of customization, but on the player perspective, this thing runs on iPads.
Yeah, well, that's great.
And I'll just say, like, for my, I feel like saying that they should have made something that from the get-go would work on a tablet. Yes, is it not going to be as gorgeous? But I feel like there would have been, you still could do something that runs 3D, that runs on an iPad at
Well,
least.
here's an important thing that they didn't take into account. Yes, I love the idea of this concept of us playing a virtual tabletop from our home computers with each other while we're on mic. But a lot of D&D happens around a table. And there is actually an argument to be said that like a bunch of people bringing a laptop and sitting around the table on the
They
VTT.
did that with the stream games that they did for it, with the demo. Like,
Yeah, but
yeah,
that means that your whole team needs like the best laptops on the market.
yeah.
And if everybody just has an iPad that's portable for them, it would be nice to say, everybody come over, bring your iPads, we're going to play some D&D, even in a virtual tabletop.
And I just think that like, I the graphics that they put together for this thing
It's gorgeous.
are it looks good. It does look good. And I know that certainly I think that they could definitely feel the pressure of like Baldur's Gate 3 and how good it looks, and being like, well, we have to at least hit that bar, right? But I can't help but wonder if there could have been some level of optimization or some level of conceit, because I think that just the raw idea of a 3D VTT on its own is compelling enough to be like, okay, we don't need like these HD like 4K textures. We don't necessarily need all the particle effects and everything like that, right? Like, yes, is it fun to play with Dwarven Forge with the LEDs and everything like that? But like, there's still like a certain level of standard. And I do think as well, by not having it, at the very least, by not having Mac support from the very get-go, we spoke with a bunch of other content creators. A lot of the D&D content creator community is running on Macs as well. And so there were a whole bunch of people within that they could have gotten feedback from, that they just didn't get feedback from because we couldn't play it. Like, I would have loved to have hung out with Ginny and Will and Antonio, like all of us, like a bunch of D&D YouTubers could have all gotten on this and done a demo game, and we could have all played it together.
We almost all
And
use Mac.
and that came up in group chats before of like, oh, maybe we should try this out together. And then it's on a Mac. And then it's like,
We couldn't.
we couldn't. And there have been other attempts at 3D VTTs that are successful and that do have much more forgiving requirements. Like, I'm thinking of things like Tabletop Simulator, or there's also Mirrorscape and Tailspire. And I do just think, I really wonder about that whole question of like, they could have done the analysis based on the D&D Beyond community. And
Yeah.
like, did it not occur to them that like maybe this was over and above? Like, it was a beefy download
It
too.
was like 600 and something
At least that's
gigs.
what it said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think as we move on to step number 3 of what could have been done differently to make this awesome, we still come back to Baldur's Gate 3 as an example here, but okay, so you're Wizards of the Coast. You have this brand new software that's trying something pretty new and exciting. Are you going to just release it and hope for the best?
Well, that's what happened, but I think that you could have looked at the model of early access. I am a huge believer in early access. I think that a lot of my favorite games over the past several years have all emerged out of early access programs. Most notably Baldur's Gate 3, but games like, and I'm just going to quote a couple games that have building mechanics in them: Satisfactory, Raft, Subnautica, Valheim. There are so many games in the base building, sandbox building genre that have launched on early access, have leveraged early access periods measured in years, and use that as a launch pad for this whole thing.
The whole point of early access is that you then get to test with your active audience and get feedback and then use that feedback to make a better system.
Yeah.
And they just skipped that, and that feels like a strange decision. And if we had 2 years of early access where feedback could have been submitted. Oh, a lot of people wish that they could run this, but they can't on their Mac. Oh, a lot of people can't even run it on the PCs that they own. Maybe we should figure that out. Oh, hey, certain systems and certain elements of the game are not as fluid. Oh, people want different things from this. They would have gotten a ton of feedback that they
Yeah.
then could have started to implement. They could have started to build something that the community wanted, because that's the point of early access. You say, "Here's a product. Are you interested? Okay, come make it better."
Yeah, let's get your feedback. And you also would have had the opportunity for content creators to start making content about that. Content creators making tutorials, making ways to engage with with the whole thing. Again, you can look at so many early access games that have really had this grassroots community thing through it. And fundamentally, like, pointing out Sigil, you don't have to buy Sigil.
Mhm.
You just get it as part of your D&D Beyond Master subscription. You just get it.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is another thing of like they were going for a pretty high fidelity piece of software here. Like they could have launched it on Steam for a reasonable price using Steam's early access. They could have found a way to still link it back into D&D Beyond and gotten some money for
So that they didn't have to fire the staff that was working on it.
yeah, that's a really puzzling element of it. And I think that this is the second question, like part of this early access question of like, it seems like they wanted to have this thing totally based around because most VTTs are simply free,
Yeah.
right? They're just free to access. And it seems to me that they could have leveraged early access and they could have looked at other models like they could have looked at the way that Foundry works, right? Whereas like Foundry, you do have to get the license for the DM, but then the players just get to play,
Yeah.
right? And there were so many other models that they could have looked to for both how it was paid for and how it was accessed. But they chose the most convoluted and and I do want to say this, like it's almost strange when you start adding all these things up because it's like they chose the thing that wouldn't make them money, right? Like if they wanted to make money, they should have leveraged early access, right?
Ideally, yeah. I mean, a lot of the things that we're saying here obviously are a path to something that would have been successful instead of a failure, therefore would have made money.
Yeah.
And if we're looking at the whole idea of businesses want to make money, that's their whole purpose as a business. And the fact that they designed Project Sigil in a way that was inaccessible, no early access, and
There was like an alpha
yeah, there was
period.
like a small period, but again, like a small period that only like a handful of people actually knew about or got to participate in.
Yeah.
That could have been a big handful,
Yeah,
but
and I do want to give the caveat that like early access is a thing that like sometimes like games launch on early access and they just die. So like it doesn't always pan out, but I'm a believer in it. I think that when it works really, really well.
especially for an ambitious project like this.
Yeah. Coming back to that notion of like early access helps build community. And I think that early access is also a place where they could have started really building that community focus around the platform because one of the pieces of criticism that comes up around this whole thing is that to get the assets to make the builder workable was a monumental task. Like to get all the dungeon pieces and city pieces and sewer pieces, like we know from using Dwarven Forge and 3D terrain, like how many times do I not have the piece that I want? And the solution is invite the community to participate through robust support for a community marketplace and modding.
I want to break into this for a second because there was no way in a million years that Wizards of the Coast was going to produce enough assets to satisfy every DM out there and the things that they wanted to create. We have seen vibrant and active mod communities in all sorts of games. Skyrim is a great example of mods all over the place. If you don't want to fight dragons and you want to fight Thomas the Tank Engine, you can. And it's those sorts of things, not the Thomas the Tank Engine. There was like upgrades to graphics. There was better NPC algorithms. There was ways that you could like build a better house. The mod support was incredible, and it was community made. And the fact that we didn't take that step, there was a way here that this became a community sort of engine that just churned out
Yeah.
so many wonderful assets. I mean, I'm going to speak for myself here as an example. Obviously, this isn't the only example, but how cool would it have been if somebody had been able to put out a Drakkenheim mod setting that allowed you to create Drakkenheim feeling and looking assets? Any DM out there who has their own homebrew world, any creator out there, any world other than standard D&D world, we could have had asset packs.
Well, this is where, like, there's multiple levels to this, right? Like, you've got the support for mods,
Yeah,
and you've got the support for community members sharing things, but then you also have the support for publishers utilizing the platform too. And all of those things could have been in play here, and they could have done a combined arms approach where, like, if you are a publisher and you want to make the full blown, like, if we wanted to work with Ghostfire Gaming and do Dungeons of Drakkenheim for Sigil, that and we could have sold that and had similar to how we have an agreement with Wizards for Drakkenheim on D&D Beyond, that could have been amazing and really positive. That's a workable relationship, right? They could have invited people who make STL 3D models for 3D printing to put skins and textures on those and sell their STLs on the marketplace. They could have allowed people to upload. I think there might have been something around uploading STLs into this as well. They could have invited Hero Forge. I think Will at D&D Shorts even suggested they could have just worked with Hero Forge on the character creator as well.
yeah,
Or so many other assets that could have been brought in, and it could have been this multifaceted model of, like, yes, there are things that people pay for. Yes, there are things that community members can share for free. Yes, there are mods that you can make on your own. And an ecosystem that involved all of those things would have been super awesome and super vibrant. And
people would have paid. It's still
yeah,
monetization, but it's monetization in a community way.
yes, it's inviting the community to participate, and you could have had people on there that were finding a career creating assets for this platform.
Yeah,
And I think that and 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 in that way, like, looking at it as a platform, like, you see how Roll20 and Foundry and other VTTs, they do have marketplaces that do allow people to put their material on
yeah.
those, but then they also have ways that people can just share things for free as well. And so that combination of being able to share things freely, but also have the opportunities for professionals to make an income from putting the material that has that higher level of effort behind it, it could have been so good. It makes me angry how good it could have been.
Yeah. Now, as our final point, we're gonna come full circle back to Monty and I raving about the games that we grew up playing, but
Yeah.
let's be real. They should have looked to successful templates for a DM editor. Uh, I think that probably the biggest example of this is one that I mentioned earlier. There are still active communities for Neverwinter Nights.
Yeah, the Aurora engine was legendary for the original Neverwinter Nights. It's still active today, from my understanding, of people using Neverwinter Nights to build their own modules and share them with each other. So that was already in the wheelhouse, right?
And I want to mention these aren't D&D related, but I just want to mention how into customization and level building some people get. Maybe I'm the exception to the rule here, but when Tony Hawk, I remember it was like the third or fourth game was just like, hey, you could build your own park. I spent more time making level
I
than I
remember that.
did playing in them. Mario Maker
Yeah,
came out, and what an active community Mario Maker has. People design some of the coolest stuff in Mario Maker. Yeah, I like to make standard Mario levels and be like, can you beat my standard Mario level? But other people make like musical levels and
yeah.
like all sorts of, but the imagination of individual people, and and, like, you look at that and you say, "Wow, somebody in Mario Maker made this, like, algorithm, this, like, mathematical masterpiece of music and colors," and you think, like, what if they just had used that idea and opened it up to a place where people can just share
I
their
remember the map
worlds?
maker for Half-Life 1.
Yeah.
Like, and I remember making Counter-Strike maps for my friends. I also remember making maps for, like, Command& and Conquer.
Oh, yeah.
That had a map
StarCraft.
StarCraft
I
maps,
used to make
right?
StarCraft
And
maps
and
all the
and
time.
and think of how many things then emerged out of modding like, Warcraft 3 and StarCraft, right? And I think that if they had have embraced that, and I think that that's the sad thing is because there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that come to these things, uh, particularly like higher level executives, that look at those things and say, "Well, we can't monetize that, and so we can't do it." But there actually is a way to like
Well,
you have to give people the ability to put things on the platform, and then the community loves it
the thing is people love creating. So,
and they
like,
love sharing.
a game like Mario Maker, no, you don't have to buy the individual levels, but they sold an entire game based on the simple concept, what if people could make their own Mario levels?
Yeah.
And that simple question, the answer was a resounding millions of people want to make their own Mario levels.
Yeah, and now I don't think Mario Maker lets people charge money for the levels that they make.
No, but the sales of that game alone were good because people wanted to create.
Yes.
So by opening it up and saying, "Hey, you can create in here for a lot of people can create for free. You can do a whole bunch of things. You can share things for free." That alone would have had people leaning towards buying more assets, buying more tools, paying even if it had a subscription cost. Like people would be into that if they could create, share, and play.
Yeah. But I think that's what comes back around to for me is that, like, if all of that shareability that makes people love platforms like Foundry, if they had have looked at that and said, "Okay, so we can actually make something that maybe we do charge $60 for this VTT. Maybe we do charge, like, a premium price for it, but we give it the robust tools, we give it the robust community, only the DM needs to buy it." And again, obviously, like, we're not executives, we're not professionals. There's I'm
We're
sure a bunch of
speculating.
people in the comments would say, "Oh, that wouldn't work." But, like, I still do like, I believe that it would have been possible. I don't think that making a 3D VTT would have been impossible. I really do think that there's so many examples of creativity and level builders, and like, yes, I've heard the criticism of like, "Oh, man, it would take hours and hours and hours for a DM to prep this." But there's DMs out there that would.
And and again, I want to bring this back. This is a point I made earlier, but again, if you are a person who likes those types of games, then you're not adding workload to your D&D game. You're actually I think one of the things that I never liked about when I would spend 100 hours building a castle in Minecraft is all that I would really get to do after that is show my friends the castle I made.
No, but this you get to invite your friends to hang out in it and play.
You're combining hobbies here. It's not, "Oh, no, I have to spend hours creating." It's for the people like myself who would spend hours creating and then get to reward myself by saying, "Now let's play D&D in it."
Yeah,
And that is the person they should have been marketing this to,
that would have been so
which is both of
cool.
us.
That would have been it just would have been so cool. The way that I imagine this thing in my mind, and, like, even when I poked around in it, like, and this is the sad thing about it, is that
It's actually kind of beautiful.
it it is kinda beautiful, it's kinda cool, and you can see in what is in the shell of this thing,
It was this close.
you can see the glimmer of that. Right? Of that's what it could have been.
Yeah.
Right? Like, does it is it something that, like, needs 3 to 5 years more of development? 100%. Right? It, like, m m it would need that long in early access and that long of a dedicated team and lots of feedback being collected, but it could be amazing, and I do believe that it could have been a game changer in that respect.
And I think that, as we kind of close up this video, I think that if Wizards of the Coast, if anybody on the team happens to watch this video, it
If anyone
doesn't
that worked on it
yeah.
happened to watch this video, like,
First of all, it's incredible what we have, there's just some fundamental issues that if we addressed, Sigil could still be awesome.
Yeah. I think that, like, but it's gonna require letting go. Like, you can also see within it the shreds of the aggressive monetization and microtransactions that were being considered for this platform.
And it was too much.
And that that is not where, as far as I'm concerned, that's not where a product like this could actually be successful and be profitable. I personally feel that there is a higher, there's going to be more success and more profit to be made from something that is community forward.
You make more money by forming a thriving community than you
Yeah.
do by isolating people.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of companies need to understand that creating community is essential to success.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where Sigil fell flat. At the end of the day, every one of the 5 things we talked about doesn't push you towards community.
Because D&D is a community-driven game, and that's what separates it, I think, from so many other, like, and that's why it's always going to defy, like, the monetization that you see in other online games. So many other online games work on that whale model of microtransactions because they're very isolating experiences playing them. Like, when you're playing a lot of online shooters, it's just you. Like, you don't have to interact with other people. You might be playing with other people in a and in a lobby, but, like, it's just your experience. But D&D is it's a group experience.
It's a group experience that involves creation and imagination, and we should be tapping in to creating spaces for imagination to
Yeah.
thrive, and for people to share their imagination, and for people to talk about and collaborate and join in on other people's
Mhm.
imagination, and then they get inspired to share their own, and
Yeah.
then it spreads.
And don't get me wrong, people are still gonna spend, it's would still be a platform where you can sell asset packs to people. People are willing to spend money. Like, I'm willing to spend money on. I subscribe to Patreons for many map creators. I bought asset packs on Roll20. I buy miniatures and terrain for my real game. If it's good quality, if it improves my game, I'm willing to spend my hobby dollars on these things. It just so the potential is there. It makes me sad. It does. It makes me sad thinking about how great this could have been.
And I think with that, we do want to hear from you. If anybody out there managed to try Project Sigil or had their hopes for Project Sigil, what is it that you wanted to see out of a 3D VTT? What is it that would have made you enjoy the experience? And, I will admit, maybe you're one of the people out there who's like, I would have never used it anyway. And that's fine too. I think that the purpose of VTTs is another option to play, not the only option to play. Some people live very far away and can't get together, and
Yes.
the VTTs are beautiful for bringing D&D to a larger array of people who can now find the time to play together. And I think we could have had something beautiful here that was another way to bring D&D to life that hasn't hit the mark.
And I think it's not too late. I think that if enough people who are excited about the potential of what this could have been expressed to Wizards what would have made it awesome too, that could be a really positive thing. So, in the comments, rather than focusing too much on what went wrong, what could have made it amazing for you? What would have made it awesome for
Yeah,
you? Let's focus on those things and the message of what would have made you use Project Sigil, because I think that sends a much more powerful message than deriding it
yeah.
for what it could have been. Because I think, yeah, I still I still am gonna hold on to hope for it. Uh,
Someday we might have a
someday,
cool map maker
yeah,
3D VTT.
someday, but it is not this day.
But it is not
This
this
day.
day. Uh, so tell us in the comments below.
Our videos and live streams are made possible thanks to the incredible generosity of our Patreon supporters. We're big believers in community too, which is why we have been able to expand and grow our community on Patreon by offering some even more amazing rewards for our patrons. You can check out all our reward tiers right down in the description below.
And you can check us out playing some D&D in our actual play, which airs Tuesday evenings right here on YouTube. You can check out all the previous episodes right up over here.
Got plenty more 5th edition coverage right up over here.
Please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and ring that bell so that you never miss an episode.
Thanks so much for watching. See you next time
In the dungeon.